day 10 of the 21 days of Yule. It is going to be a fun one, I have a feeling. Let's just see what's in door number 10. We have a fairy tale message for you. Hello and welcome to your fairy tale message. Today's Choose a Pile readings are going to be using the Fairytale Tarot by Baba Studio and the Arthur Rackham Oracle, and we are going to be looking at a message based in fairy tale. So for each pile I will read you a short story and we'll look at the card and the accompanying oracle card, and I will share with you a message that is just for you. So before we get started, you'll want to focus on the pile that is for you today. So take a couple deep breaths and take a moment just to hone in on the pile that feels like the right one for you on this day and in this moment. If you need to pause the video to take some more time to do that, please go ahead and do that now. And I'm going to just jump right in. So I'm going to be starting with pile number 1, which is our snowflake pile here. Pile number 1, we have in the Oracle, Fortification, Arrayed in Confidence. And the tale is 5 of Wands, the story of Kintaro the Golden Boy. So I'm going to read you that story and then we'll jump into the reading itself. If you want to skip this part, I'll try to have a timestamp that jumps you right to the message, as well as one that takes you into the story so that you can choose how much of this video you want to watch. But I'm going to dive right on in. A boy named Kintaro, or the Golden Boy, was born to a widow in the forest. The house was isolated, so he grew up all alone, but he learned to speak with the animals, which became his servants and messengers. As he grew bigger, the boy became unusually strong, able to crush rocks and stones with his hands. One day he went out walking with his friends, the bear, the deer, the monkey, and the hare. When they came upon a grassy plain covered with pretty wildflowers, they decided to have a wrestling competition, and Kintaro promised to give a prize to whoever won each round. First, the monkey and the hare wrestled, with the deer serving as umpire. The hare won, and Kintaro gave him a nice dumpling as a prize, but the monkey was angry, stating that he had not been fairly beaten, and demanded another round. This time, the monkey had pulled down the hare, so he too won a rice dumpling from Kintaro. Next, the deer and the hare wrestled, with the bear serving as umpire. The deer lost the first round, the hare the next, and so it went on, back and forth, until the entire party found itself quite tired. They decided to go home and return to the field the following day for more wrestling, but alas, on their way home they were confronted by a river with no bridge to get across it. However, with his amazing strength, Kintaro pulled a large tree down across the river, forming a bridge. The animals were astonished by this, and so was a woodcutter, who witnessed the action and decided secretly to follow Kintaro home to see whose son he was. Once home, Kintaro told his mother the results of the wrestling match. The bear was the strongest, besides him, of course. Just then, the woodcutter interrupted the conversation, entering the cottage and demanding to go with them tomorrow so that he might also participate in the wrestling competition. Next day, Kintaro and the woodcutter arm wrestled, and the woodcutter proved nearly, but not quite as strong as Kintaro. Impressed by the boy's talents, the woodcutter revealed he was actually a general in disguise. He offered to take the boy and present him to the Lord Reiko as a samurai candidate. Kintaro and his mother were both overjoyed at the prospect. When Kintaro reached the capital, Lord Reiko was astounded by the story the general told him and made the boy one of his vassals immediately. A few years later, Kintaro became chief of the 4 Braves, Lord Reiko's strongest band. One day, he was called upon to rescue the people of a nearby village where a cannibal monster had taken up his abode. Kintaro cut the monster's head off and carried it back in triumph to his master. This made him the greatest hero of his country. He built a comfortable home for his mother in the city, and they lived happily together until the end of her days. Now, there's a lot here in this story about strength and competition, and the 5 of Wands we know is often about conflict and competing. And often the conflict is more of a friendly competition, the kind of competition that tends to make us better and stronger. This card about fortification and being arrayed in confidence really speaks to somebody who is going into a situation with a lot of belief in themselves. And as this for those who this message is for, I feel like both of these cards are a gentle or maybe even not so gentle reminder to not underestimate your own strength, your own power, and your own abilities. If you have a tendency to fade into the background to allow other people to shine, this card, or this combination of cards especially, is your wake-up call that you have every right to step into the light, that you have all the skills you need to succeed at whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish. You just need to believe in yourself. In this case, Kintaro was filled with confidence, and he wasn't so confident as to feel like he was owed anything, but he certainly wasn't afraid to go after his dreams and to really step into his power, and he was not afraid of the limelight. I think both of these cards are reminders that you have a powerful voice to share, and it's worth sharing. Don't be so afraid of any sense of competition that you don't actually pursue your dreams. Pile number 2. Your fairy tale today is the Six of Cups, Hansel and Gretel. And your accompanying oracle card is Coterie, Kindred Spirits. Kindred Spirits. Again, I will have a timestamp so you can skip the story and go right to your message if you like. Once upon a time, there lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. There was a great famine in the land, and the woodcutter had become unable even to feed his family. His wife persuaded him that they should take the children into the nearby forest and leave them there. Otherwise, she argued, all 4 of them would starve. As they lay in the next room, sleepless with hunger, the children overheard this conversation and were afraid. But Hansel told Gretel that he would find a way for them to escape this fate. When the adults were asleep, he crept out and gathered some white pebbles that gleamed like silver in the moonlight. He put them in his pocket, and then he went to bed. At daybreak, the woman woke the 2 children and told them that they were all going out to fetch wood in the forest. She gave each child a bit of bread and told them to make it last. Then off they went. As they walked, Hansel quietly dropped a white pebble from his pocket on the path every few steps. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father built a big fire, and the woman told the children to sit and rest in front of it. Then both adults went off into the forest. The children fell asleep, and when they awoke, the fire had burned down, and they found themselves all alone in the dark forest. But Hansel told Gretel to wait until the full moon rose, and when it did, he showed up the trail of pebbles shining in the moonlight and pointed the way home. The children reached home safely, and for a while all was well. But then the woman again began urging the father to get rid of the 2 little ones. Hearing this, Hansel tried once more to go out to gather stones, but he found the cottage door was locked. The next day at early dawn, the woman came and made the children get up and go to the forest. This time Hansel dropped breadcrumbs. Again the children were left by a warm fire, and again they later found themselves abandoned. However, when Hansel tried to follow the trail of crumbs, he found they had all been eaten by birds, so he and his sister were truly lost in the forest. They wandered hopelessly until at midday on the 3rd day they saw a snow-white bird that seemed to be asking them to follow it. It led them to a little house made of gingerbread and roofed with cakes, with window panes all of transparent sugar. Famished, Hansel and Gretel began tearing off pieces to eat, but immediately an old woman hobbled out. She took the children into her house and fed them and seemed most friendly. In fact, however, she was a witch and used her house to lure in children who she would then cook and eat. Next day she put Hansel in a little cage and made Gretel work at cooking and cleaning. She planned to eat Hansel when he was fat, and so each day she felt his finger through the bars. But the witch could not see well, so Hansel held out a little bone instead of his finger, and for a long time the witch was fooled into thinking him too scrawny to eat. 4 weeks passed, and finally the witch decided it was time to cook Hansel, fat or thin. She made Gretel boil a big pan of water, and she lit the fire in her oven. "First we'll bake," said the witch, and told Hansel to creep into the oven to see if it was hot. But Gretel guessed the witch's intentions and pretended to be too stupid to know how to climb into the oven. So the witch crawled in herself to show Gretel the way, and the girl immediately slammed shut the door and left the witch to burn. Gretel ran straight to Hansel's cage and released him. Together they went into the house and looked around, found boxes filled with pretty pearls and jewels, of which they took as much as they could. They wandered for some time until they came to a lake where they would have been stuck but for a kind white duck who carried them over on her back one after the other. On the far shore they found that they were close to home. When they arrived back at their cottage, they discovered that their father had not passed a happy hour since he had left them in the wood, but the woman had died. Gretel shook out her apron so that the pearls and precious stones rolled about the room, and Hansel threw down one handful after the other out of his pocket. Thus all their troubles were ended, and they lived happily ever after. This is such a difficult tale because the children are left, and it's really a story of being removed from your comfort and having to fight your way back. The Six of Cups in the tarot is typically a card of fond memories and of sort of pure and simple times. And in a way, Hansel and Gretel were naive to the realities of their situation. They knew that they were hungry, and their parents recognized the depth of the situation, the depth of the difficulty of the situation. What's interesting, though, is that they never abandoned one another. They were there for each other. They guided each other. Hansel was very much the big brother to Gretel, but when he was trapped in the cage, she took over and looked after him. Neither abandoned the other, and I think that's a really beautiful message when you look at the accompanying oracle card, which is Kindred Spirits, and you think these two were very dear to one another, and they were willing to do whatever necessary to protect each other and their relationship. Pardon my head. See if I can cut that out. In the end, the message for you today, if these are the cards that you have received, is to mind the relationships that are really truly healthy, the ones that make you feel nurtured and seen and held and supported and loved. And remember to put as much into those relationships as you get out of them, to treasure the people that make you feel safe and comforted, who look after your well-being and look after theirs as well. Right then, let's move on to pile number 3. In pile number 3, we have Many Fur, the World, and our oracle card is Magnetism, Charming Properties. Let's take a look at the story. Again, I will have a timestamp so you can skip this from the story straight to the message if that is what you're looking to do today. A king's wife fell fatally ill, and as she lay dying, she stipulated that she should only marry again if he found a woman as beautiful as herself. As their daughter resembled the queen, the king decided that, daughter or not, she was his only match. Horrified, the girl told her father that she would not marry a man unless he first gave her 3 dresses, 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 like the stars. Furthermore, hoping to make a really impossible demand, she asked for a mantle made out of 1,000 furs, to which every beast in the kingdom had to contribute a piece. But the king somehow managed to supply all 4 garments, and knowing that she now had no further excuse not to marry him, the princess, in terror, smeared herself with soot and ran away. She took with her the dresses and the fur, along with 3 treasures, a golden ring, a golden spinning wheel, and a golden reel. Covered in the strange fur and sleeping in a tree in a distant forest, the princess was discovered one day by another king's hunting party. She said that she was an orphan, discovered one day, and was taken back to the kingdom and given a job doing menial work in the kitchen. Then one day a feast was held in the castle, and the princess got permission from the cook to go and see all the goings-on. She removed the fur and the soot and put on the golden dress. The king, astounded by this mysterious beauty, danced with her. But as soon as the dance ended, she ran off back to the kitchen, put back her soot and her fur, and resumed her chores. She then cooked a soup for the king, placing her golden ring at the bottom of the bowl. When the king found the ring, he asked the cook who made the soup. The cook replied that it was Many Fur. The king asked to see this mysterious Many Fur and demanded to know who she was and how she got the ring. She replied that she was merely an orphan found in the forest and denied knowing anything about the ring. She attended the next 2 feasts also, wearing first the dress like silver and then the dress like stars. Each time she later cooked for the king, slipping into his soup the little golden spinning wheel and then the golden reel. But unnoticed by Many Fur at the 3rd ball, the king had slipped a ring on the princess's finger. So when he called Many Fur to ask her about the golden reel, he recognized the ring on her finger and realized who she must be. At this, the princess removed the fur and the soot and revealed herself in all her golden-haired and radiant beauty. The king married her, and they lived happily ever after. This is very much a tale of happy endings and of things coming full circle. It has a familiarity to other stories that we've heard in the past, I'm sure. Stories like Cinderella. And magnetism, charming properties, speaks to somebody whose true light always shines through. There was a beauty in this girl that was visible even through the soot and beneath the fur. And I think that's the message of the story, is that there was wholeness and completion there. She was already worthy of the right husband, of the right marriage, of the right match. She had that quality of attraction. Sometimes those with charisma don't always recognize that they have it, or even recognize how it benefits them. And this story is a reminder that there's so much available to you if you simply embrace the power of who you are. Sorry, I have a puppy that needs to go back out. So really this is about embracing the good stuff about you, remembering that you are enough. And when you are making new friends, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're meeting new people, to really step into your own wholeness and remember that you don't need to seek anybody else's approval. You just need to hold your head high and believe in yourself. Thank you all so much for hanging out for this Choose a Pile reading. I have really been enjoying sharing these throughout the 21 days of Yule, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.